Good afternoon. Welcome to Northwestern Oklahoma State University's Video Guest Artist Lecture Series. Today we are joined by visual artist, a fantastic drawer and painter, David Bonagurio. David, thank you for joining us today.
No problem.
David? So, could you tell us a little bit about your background, what your influences are, where you are going, and things like that, please?
Of course. Well, I was born in Houston, Texas, and lived there until I was 17. And I went to my undergraduate at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I lived and worked there for about 5 or 6 years. While there, I did an internship with an artist, which I'll talk about later in my talk, and then decided I wanted to go to grad school. And ended up doing a post-bachelor year at the Maryland Institute College of Art. Lived in Baltimore for a year, and then I went to Syracuse, New York, for my MFA, and graduated in 2014 with my MFA in painting.
Great. All right. So, without further ado, if you don't mind showing some work, that'd be great.
Sure. All right. So I'll switch it over to the mirroring thing.
Okay.
Screen share. Is it working now?
He's from Houston. Yes.
Alrighty.
Could you do a full screen for me, please?
Sure. How's that look?
Yep, that's fine. Perfect.
All right. So, do I have an audience here? Is somebody here?
Yes.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you. So, I mean, I've known Yoshi for a little while. We went to grad school together for about a year, and then he graduated ahead of me. He asked me to talk to his undergrads. I said sure, because I love talking to undergrads. And, I always think that the best way for me to talk to people about my work in your situation is to try to describe what I was doing while I was in your situation, and then hopefully kind of make some sort of coherent connection to what I'm doing now. And I got to apologize ahead of time for some of the poor slide quality, because some of these I was taking with my digital camera that I had when I was an undergraduate, and it was really just like, actually I think I found it, so you know, it's not the best camera. So anyway.
Well, it's a good thing your quality of art makes up for a poor camera then.
Oh, I hope so. So anyway, I just want to say, as undergrads, you're at a time when you should be taking as many risks as possible and making as many terrible things as you possibly can, because that's just kind of how you learn. When I was at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, I first went there. I was thinking I was going to be part of the advertising design program, and after a year of foundations and design classes, I found out that advertising really wasn't for me. It just, yeah, I just didn't really mesh with design. I don't really have a design mindset. I feel like you have to be a certain type of person to go into that. So my sophomore year, I actually declared as a drawing major, which was quite different. So anyway, I'm starting with these shoes, even though they're not something I would consider like an actual piece of art or an actual piece of mine, because I think they're pretty exemplary of how I was thinking and what I was doing at the time. I didn't know what I wanted to say or what I should be saying. I just kind of declared drawing after thinking I was going to be in advertising, so I wasn't even really sure if I should be in art school at all. So I just started kind of recording things that were around me. Like if I saw an interesting texture or an interesting color combination or lighting situation, I would try, and more often than not fail to get something of that down on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean this light. This is just a light that was in my bedroom, in my dorm room, and there's some purple sticky notes on the wall. Again, sorry for the poor slide quality. It's little tiny things that I just kind of randomly had. Uh, this
It's
lighting
fine.
this lighting fixture was in my bathroom, and I probably painted it 10 times. Uh, but again, I was just looking for different lighting situations, and the colors that kind of came off the reflective surface were pretty interesting. So I mean, like I'm just trying to say, I didn't really know what I was doing. Um, but I did start. I did take my first figure drawing classes while I was an undergrad, and I really kind of fell in love with the figure. Um, I the figure kind of let me focus on all the formal issues that had interested me while I was just kind of drawing and painting random objects. But it was paired with that kind of inherent human expression that you have in the figure.
Mhm.
Um, I really credit figure drawing with breaking me out of my shell and being my first avenue for real expression in my work. I still use the figure to this day in my work, just because it's an extremely powerful vessel because we all have a body and we all kind of project ourselves onto what's familiar. Um, so I just kind of kept up with figure drawing and just kept working and working at it. And like I said, whenever occasionally I get the opportunity to teach figure drawing, and I always end up learning something new.
Mhm.
Um, I've always really enjoyed doing portraiture also because it kind of has like that same qualities and the same aims behind figure drawing, but with a little bit more focus. Uh, I think it's one of the more challenging things that you can do is try to capture a likeness because it's more than just like placement of features. You know, it's expression of the body, it's body language, it's presentation, it's so many things. Um, I started painting the figure I mostly just because I wanted to work on my painting skills. I'd never actually painted before my sophomore year, uh, but I still didn't really have much of an artistic direction. Just that I was like interested in the different ways in which figures can be expressive. Um, but again, I didn't really know what I was doing with it. I was just drawing and painting people a lot.
Right.
Um, I grew up with a lot of animals. We always had dogs, but I also had snakes and various lizards and fish and birds and frogs and turtles and whatever.
Mhm.
We live near a bayou in Houston, so we were always bringing home just whatever we could find. And my mom loved animals, so we ended up with a lot of pets. Um, I knew that animals of all kinds could be really expressive in their own way, but I wanted to see if I could capture that. So I started focusing on animals. I never had an octopus though, but I do think they're really interesting, and I've always wondered like what type of emotional life they led. Uh, but I also started to experiment with different like combinations of materials. Like this is graphite and uh, different colors of ink.
Mhm.
Um, grackles are a type of bird that live all over the U.S., but in Houston, I swear they're different. I don't know if it's because of the climate or maybe because they don't have to expel so much energy to migrate, but whatever the reason is, I think that there's more of them. They're bigger, they're louder, and they're more active. And they run around everywhere like little dinosaurs. Um, I did a long series where I was painting grackles. Um, this is kind of a long explanation for this, but it's just more kind of the link between animal and human expressiveness.
Mhm.
Another piece in that series.
The way
And
to zoom in that,
what?
the way to zoom in the previous image, it's kind of small on my screen here.
Okay.
Okay. So it's like a squirrel head?
Yeah, it's just a squirrel head.
Okay.
Oh, I'm probably zooming too far out. Okay, anyway, so again, like I said, portraiture was something that's always been really
Okay.
uh, influential in my work, and it still is.
Yeah.
Uh, this might have been one of the first portraiture projects that I did that I kind of branched out a little bit. Like whenever I do a self-portrait, it's never really kind of a straightforward practice. It's usually
Right.
just a little bit more conceptual, I guess. Like I had found a notebook that had drawings in it that I did when I was in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And so I decided that I was going to do a self-portrait by redoing the drawings that were in this book. So I did 3 of them, and this one was Rabbit on Fire Under 2 Suns. And that book was full of fire. I don't know what I was doing as a kindergartner, but so then this was my more recent version of Rabbit on Fire Under 2 Suns. And then I am next to my horse, and I am next to my horse. And then this is a really odd one. This little kid looks like he's touching a cat's butt while the cat is crying. It's been a really strange kid. So I got this.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, illustration. I started taking some illustration classes because it just seemed like a really good avenue for branching out. I still like to take on illustration jobs whenever I can. Like I actually just got done drawing a bunch of dragons for some guy's tattoo design that he wanted. But it gives you an excuse to draw all the ridiculous things that you want to do, but you just can't justify spending time on. But yeah, so I have a little bit of illustration work. And like Sigmund Freud and his
was a tiger.
cigar.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Was a tiger part of your commission, or is that something you did for yourself?
That was actually a undergrad assignment.
Okay.
I can't remember. Like we had to illustrate different phrases, and this one was big cat, small box. So it's a tiger crushing a litter box.
Nice.
Yeah. And then we just had to do caricatures, and I did one of Sigmund Freud. I think I did Michael Jackson and Genghis Khan too, but I don't know where those pictures are.
Okay.
So I also started doing some printmaking while I was an undergrad too, and I know this is just making me seem really eclectic and all over the place, but again, you know, as an undergrad, you really just got to do as many different things as you can because there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of different things that you can do that you really aren't going to know whether or not they're going to be useful to you unless you just dive right into them and do as much of them as you can. Like when I was an undergrad, I had no interest in printmaking before I found out that we had a printmaking department, and then I took every printmaking class that they had available, which was intaglio, lithography, screen printing, and monotype.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't like screen printing that much, but because it seemed like too much of a dissection of an image before you ever really got to work on the final, and it took all the spontaneity out of it for me. But anyway, but this is intaglio, which is a copper plate etching, and then you just run that through a press, ink pressed into the grooves. But another thing about printmaking is you usually end up with these really nice objects afterward. Like this is the print, and then this was the plate, like the actual copper plate. And I kind of prefer the plate to the print, but I don't know.
So this is an elephant head with the ostrich body?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I wrote it on this one, but you can see down at the bottom it says Ostrifant.
Okay.
I'm clever. Anyway, so this is a monotype, which is basically it's just a reductive oil painting on a piece of plexiglass, and then you run it through a press, and it prints that image onto a piece of paper. And again, it's called monotype because you basically get one shot, you know. So it's one print. And I don't know if you can see there's pigeons running around in it. There's another monotype, just a friend of mine from high school. There's another monotype that, again, like just through experimentation, you end up finding some cool things that not too many people have done before. Like this is uh, just kind of the inverse of the way that it would normally be done. It's just printed on black paper with kind of a lighter colored ink. So
Very
anyway,
nice.
then toward what?
Very nice.
Oh, thanks. So then toward the end of my undergrad career, I started working for this artist. His name is Edward Lynch, Lentschh, if you want to look him up. But he does these really like large gestural abstractions, and they're just gorgeous. Don't watch any of his YouTube videos because they don't make any sense. But
Okay.
he's a really interesting guy, and it was a lot of he didn't really trust a lot of people, and so he tried to do everything in house. So he rented out this huge space in downtown or just outside of downtown Minneapolis in the warehouse district. He had like this
Mhm.
huge 10,000 square foot studio where he had a full wood shop and like a little gallery space and storage and like event spaces and stuff like that. It was amazing, and he supported it all just through doing community projects and painting sales. So he had a pretty good mind for business, but yeah, he's just a weird guy. But anyway, so like what I did for him, I built his canvases. I cleaned his studio. I kept him in stock with all his materials, and I drove his work all over the country too. Like he had galleries in different regions, kind of spaced out around the country, and I would take his work again because he didn't trust art handlers. I would take he had his own like Dodge Sprinter van, which is this big 11-foot cargo van.
Hmm.
So we'd pack his van full of these huge paintings, and then I would drive them around the country and drop them off at galleries and change out work. And I even got to so I got to know the gallery system pretty well through doing that. I got to negotiate his consignment agreements and just get to know the inner workings of fine art galleries. So that was really interesting and a very valuable thing. And it's something that I don't think a lot of programs really push is the value of internships for fine arts. Because when I was an undergrad, like it wasn't required. It was just something I decided that out of nowhere that I wanted to do, and it was really kind of happenstance that I ended up with this guy because he had walked in and said that he needed a studio assistant, and then I walked in 5 minutes after he left and said I need an internship, and then we put us together. So it just kind of worked out. But anyway, while I was working for him, I ended up working for him for about 3 years. So I stayed on with him after I graduated, and he started to encourage me to because we talked about art a lot, obviously, because he's a painter and I was a painter. So he was really encouraging me to branch out with my materials because while I was still very interested in still very interested in experimentation, I was still very traditional as far as the types of materials that I was using. And Ed really was not. Like most what he would use is like asphaltum, driveway sealant, marble dust. Like he used all sorts of things because he actually used to be a construction worker and a furniture builder. So he just was like he was basically just painting with the stuff that he had around him. And his work was really like heavily textured, and it was really gorgeous when you got up really close to it. And that was always something that really interested me too, and something that I always really valued in work was that it would be interesting from all distances, like whether you're far away or close up. So so I started experimenting and doing some like small abstract pieces, and trying to like kind of make his materials my own. So this is one of my pieces. And again, yeah, it wasn't, doing these abstract pieces. I love abstract work, but it's again, I have this like just innate need to describe things to their fullest. So it just it wasn't wholly satisfying for me. So I had to try to come up with a way to merge these two ways of thinking, because I love the idea of the abstract field, and it was influencing me already, but I just didn't know how to express it. And when I started doing these abstract pieces, it felt great, but again, I felt like I needed to kind of like bring it back to myself. So I started trying to combine the two ways, and made some really awful paintings. And I feel like this might be one of them, and really heavy paintings too, because this is mostly like concrete. And even when I was trying to, and the other thing is like the surfaces on these are so rough that it was really difficult to paint on. And when I tried to get around that by like maybe not like painting first and then doing abstract around it, they just seemed too much like a cutout, and they didn't merge very well. But eventually I started getting pieces that kind of came together and were, I already used the word, but merging the two ways of representation. So
Right.
it was good, and I was enjoying it. But again, I ran into so many hurdles and so many problems just with materials that like again, like this painting, I felt like it kind of came together pretty well, but zoom in a little bit, you can see like the paint wouldn't lay down flat on it because it just was, the surface was so lumpy, and it made the painting not as good, you know. Like I said, that really frustrated me because I have that need to describe things, and I couldn't get the finer brushwork in. That probably should have been earlier in the slides, but anyway. But you know, every once in a while I found ways. Like this one, I ended up finding a way to get a much smoother surface on it. But again, I don't know. Like there's just too many complications when you're working with really odd materials. So
I actually remember you working on that piece, so it's kind of nice to see it again.
oh yeah, this is another one where I feel like it kind of worked out. But I threw away so many paintings during this time because one of the problems is like all the brown in this is asphaltum that's being absorbed by oil, and if you're trying to paint oil on or around that, it turns your paints really brown, and then they won't dry quite right. And I worry about the archivalness of them. But anyway, but you know, I always go back to drawing. You know, I always end up finding my way back there because that's where my roots are, and that's really what I love to do is to draw. And again, portraiture has just been something that's been there for me. That I can, every time I feel like I need to get back to drawing, I just do a portrait. I'm drawing for the next year. So that's Charles Darwin. This is Richard Feynman, who's a physicist from the 50s. And again, like this series was actually another self-portrait in a way, because I have kind of a running series of portraits that of different people that have kind of influenced the way that I think about the world. So there was Darwin, there's Feynman, and then I had Hermann Hesse, who was one of my favorite authors. He wrote Siddhartha and Steppenwolf and Glass Bead Game, which are some of my favorite books. And again, these last two, actually, okay, I shouldn't go that far. Go back to, okay, this is a Conte crown on Mylar, and then, which is a technique that I picked up from a different artist named Sophie Jodouin, or it's Jodin. She is a freak. Like, she is so good, it kind of hurts. But she had been working in Conte crown on Mylar and doing kind of these reductive drawings, occasionally with some washes, and they're stunning. So I I started using those materials, and I kind of liked where they're going, but there's a little bit of limitation. Some of the line work is a little weird, but so I tried to come up with my own version, something a little smoother, and that's where I started doing these powdered graphite on Mylar, which eventually became powdered graphite on gessoed panel that I had prepared in a very specific way. So yeah, it gets to kind of this kind of smooth metallic finish to it that doesn't come through in the photos, but just trust that it's there. But at the same time, I'm always looking to do something different. Every time I get an idea for a new application of materials or a new way of presenting a drawing or a painting, I got to at least try it, because again, you never know what's going to be useful later on. Like this next series is these next three are it's a mixture of plaster and acrylic, and it's laid down really thick on a board, and then I just started doing some drawings into it. And these are big. These are 50 by 60 or 60 by 48. I'm sorry. So they're 5 feet tall, and that's the wrong direction. Sorry. But yeah. And then this has an oil wash over the top of it. So I'm just kind of doing these drawings into the surface, and again, like I didn't really know how it linked back exactly to my previous work, and again, I was losing a lot of detail. But this is something that I'm coming back to now, trying to get kind of a combination between this type of work and the work that I'm doing now, which we're about to get to in a little bit. But it's really important to just try as many things as you can, because I feel like your work and process is a cumulative experience. Like everything that you pick up, you end up using again and again and again, just in different combinations down the road. So yeah, this is actually, the painting is actually right behind me right now, but yeah. So, and then these are going back to the graphite on panel. Yoshi probably remembers these. I think I did these while he was there. They're just these tiny little graphite drawings. I think this is like maybe 7 inches tall. So I was using like I was using these erasers that I was having to sharpen like every couple of minutes. I had an X-Acto knife that I would keep my erasers really sharp with. This one I think is about 11 inches, 11 by 8. And oh, let me go back and start, because this series is really kind of what got me going on the work that I'm doing now. They were kind of about hmm, the I'd really kind of become interested in the way that we think about our interactions with just anything, physical objects or whatever, uh, and that how the universe is a lot more fluid than we perceive it to be. It's really just due to the restrictions of our own uh, perception of time that really makes us feel like everything is solid. So the only reason that this table in front of me is solid is because I live in a certain time frame. And I was just trying to take kind of chunks of the body, chunks of the figure, and removing them from that, so making them seem more permanent and outside of that time frame. And then, what was that ding? Are you still there? Hello? Hello?
Okay. I wonder how long I've been talking to nobody.